I commend it, Mr Speaker. Kia ora no tātou.
I call the honourable member Eugenie Sage. Tēnā koe.
I beg your pardon, Mr Speaker.
It's early in the morning. Catherine Delahunty.
I'm honoured to be called Eugenie Sage.
Okay. Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou te whare. He mihi nui ki Ngati Whatua o Kaipara, nā rima tēnā koutou. It is a privilege to speak on the first reading of this very important bill, and this is a very important day. And reading any of the background, knowing any of the people, this has been a long journey. It has been a journey that takes us to the heart of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. And it's a unique, they're all unique settlements, Mr Speaker, but this one strikes the Green Party as having a particularly deep relationship with the actual Te Tiriti signing itself, and what price loyalty to the Crown. What price loyalty to Te Tiriti o Waitangi? And in fact, with colonisation, Mr Speaker, we would say damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because Ngati Whatua o Kaipara iwi did not fight the Crown, did not oppose Te Tiriti, and lost everything. So it's a very interesting historical account which we need to take into our minds when thinking about what is acceptable redress. Because people lost everything even though they gave everything. We've heard settlements in this House that have been about direct raupatu, about warfare, about confiscations in many ways. But this particular place, these particular stories remind us that in 1840, these people stood alongside their Pākehā visitors, manuhiri if you like, and said, we will be generous and we will negotiate a relationship in our whenua, in the Kaipara. And in exchange, what they got was the complete loss of their lands and their well-being and resources. And I think it's important to go back to the historical account because it's part of the unique story of how Te Tiriti o Waitangi has been breached. In a very literal way, promises have very literally been broken. So I'm quoting from the deed. At a meeting was held at Manukau where concerns were raised by Māori as to the Crown's intentions. We're having these meetings today as well. Nothing's really changed in some ways. Simons sought to dispel these doubts, and at a second meeting on 20th March 1840, the Ngati Whatua Paramount Chief Apihai Te Kauau with Te Tinana and Te Rewati signed a copy of the Māori text of the treaty. They didn't sign no Pākehā text, they didn't sign no text that said forest fisheries only, they signed a text that guaranteed in Article 2 tito rangatiratanga. Simons reported that among the chiefs who signed he found the best disposition displayed towards Her Majesty's government, but at the same time their expectations are raised very high as to the immediate benefits which they are to derive from its establishment in this country. And what happened next, Mr Speaker? How well were their expectations met? Clearly this settlement process shows that they were failed on every count. And I want to quote another part of the settlement because I think it also typifies the failure to meet those agreements and expectations. Ngati Whatua provided resources and protection for the development of the new colony in September 1840. And every time a racist writes to me and says, those Marys would only be in glass skirts if it wasn't for us and our brilliant technology, it would be great if they could recall that for people in the Kaipara, some of them were going to starve to death if it hadn't been for the people of the Kaipara literally giving them kai and teaching them how to land a boat in that fabulous harbour. So it's very important to recognise resources and protection for the development of the new colony were provided. In September 1840, Crown officials made arrangements with Ngati Whatua for the transfer of approximately 3,000 acres of land at Tamaki. One of the principal chiefs expressed fears that the Queen of England would take all their land from them and that they would have none to live on. They were right. They were right. That fear was realised in full, maybe not the next day, but after the next and the next. Crown officials reassured him, as we do, Crown officials, Quote, that the governor would come to see that neither Pākehā nor Māoris were wronged. Mr. Speaker, that is a shameful statement in the context of what has happened. Ngati Whatua again considered that the transaction was a tuku, a customary gifting carried out with the intention of cementing their relationship with the Crown and underpinned by broader concepts of reciprocity and ongoing mutual obligation. And I think those phrases respect the spirit in which these tupuna signed the treaty. A broader concepts of reciprocity and ongoing mutual obligation, not we will provide for you, we will allow the development of the new colony in the Kaipara Tamaki Rohe, and then you're going to rip us off. And then, a number of 100 and something years later, they're still going to have to wait 169 years for the possibility of first right of purchase for some other parts of their own whenua. The ironies in the settlement are multiple. The progress is good, and we are supporting the settlement. But we cannot ignore that Te Treaty o Waitangi is the critical foundation of our nation, and these stories of the abuse of promises made are very important. And they're so important today so that we don't repeat them, so that there is no more double-speak, raupatu and manipulation when the Crown has an engagement with tangata whenua. And that's why these settlements are important, not only in their own terms, but in the context of the debates that we're having in this whare and around the motu right now about resources and Indigenous people's rights and Te Treaty of Waitangi. Because loyalty to the Crown was repaid by an enormous loss of resources. And the expectations of health, wealth and education were not fulfilled. Everything, the ironies of the stories of Te Awaroa, where 10 acres were gifted for Helensville and there was going to be an acre set aside, and there was such mean-spirited greed, and whereby everything was taken. Anything that was reserved was eaten into. It's just embarrassing and shameful to read how their generosity and respect for the treaty was repaid by ancestors of some of us Pākehā. And how little people know who come from Auckland about the true history of what went down. And so how important it is that we actually address the multiplicity of issues. Now, this is a big settlement in terms of work. You can see how much work's gone into it, and I'd like to acknowledge all the negotiators from Ngati Whatua o Kaipara and the leadership of many, many people, including Margaret Kāwharu and others, who have shown intergenerational consistency, generosity and willingness to negotiation, as did their tupuna. And so the duty on the kawana, and all of us represented by the kawana, is to do our best to make amends. And there are some settlement elements that are very positive in this unique story of betrayal. However, we do have to remember that the Native Land Court was first established in the Kaipara, in the place where there was the most generosity and the most willingness to work with the Crown, that the Native Land Court, the instrument of individualisation and land loss, was established in the Kaipara. And so I think in acknowledging that, the settlement must be generous. It is great to see things like Parakai, to see Atua Nui Maunga acknowledged, to see some of the reserves in Wahitapu, and I would agree with others in the House, the naming of names is critical. And we must name the truth here and honour the history and do the right thing by Ngati Whatua o Kaipara. Tēnā koutou.
I call the Honourable Tauhina